This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
Are you a professional pillow fighter? Or a 9-to-5 low-cost time travel agent? Or maybe real estate sales on Mars is your profession? It doesn't matter. Whatever it is you do, however complex or intricate, Monday.com can help you organize, orchestrate, and make it more efficient. Monday.com is the one centralized platform for everything work-related. And with Monday.com, work is just easier. Monday.com, for whatever you run. Go to Monday.com to learn more.
This is Writers on Film, the only podcast dedicated to books on cinema. Hello everybody and welcome to Writers on Film. This is the second part and concluding part of my report from the Karlovy Film Festival in the Czech Republic. It was a wonderful festival, I enjoyed it immensely, and the company was superb, as you will hear. I talked to a variety of writers to get their takes on the films and also on the festival experience generally. I'm kicking off with Damon Wise. He's a great writer. He's written for Empire and a lot of different places, The Guardian, The Guide, a lot of different places, and he's currently writing for Deadline.
So let's talk about When the Ice Melts. This is a Belgian film that originally showed at Sundance, I think.
Well, we're podcasting now.
We've been podcasting all along.
I know.
You don't know what I'm going to
like
leave in, what I'm going to take out.
It's like the end of The Shining. It's going to turn out I've been podcasting all the way through this festival.
You've always been the podcaster.
I am podcast. So what do you want me to talk about?
When the Ice Melts, the Belgian film.
Well, When the Ice Melts. So I had seen a little bit before of that movie because they had a thing in Antwerp called Belgium Connects, and so I didn't. Yeah, it was. I knew vaguely what it was about. I knew it was based on a book, and I knew that it was based on 2 timelines about a young girl going back to her village to confront a dark secret from her past. But even so, I wasn't quite prepared for how dark it was going to get. Now, bear in mind, I didn't see it. I saw it on my computer late at night, so it probably had a very strong effect on me. But it certainly is one of the most powerful endings I've seen in a long time. It's up there, I think, with even Hanukkah, actually, in terms of a shocking exploration of teenage sexuality, and also how much people are prepared to forget when their families are involved. I think that to me is the most impressive part of the film, about how it constructs this atmosphere of oppressive collusion. This girl goes back to hometown to accuse her childhood friends of abuse, basically, and then she's proven horribly right. And you see kind of it's more about the kind of, it's not really about the events as such, but the conspiracy of silence that has coalesced over the years to cover it all up. And I was quite shaken by that film, actually, for quite some time. I don't think I went to bed until the early hours of the morning.
Yeah, there was a silence when the film finished at the screening last night. I watched it at 10 o'clock at the festival in the beautiful theatre, like I think it's the sort of the city theatre, absolutely gorgeous setting, but a very, very bleak film, and yet sort of like it is beautifully filmed as well. There is the flashback sequences take place in a summery village which is quite idyllic, and the present day is kind of a wintry Brussels for the most part, and then back to the village. But it's a cold, obviously colder, but it's really thoughtfully filmed as well, with lots of the shots paralleled between the two timelines.
But if you didn't know about the if it wasn't for the contemporary timeline, it would be quite a jolly film about childhood, I think, because they talk about each other, the Three Musketeers, and the sort of it's a bit like almost like the Goonies in the way that it kind of portrays this kind of, and then when they start asking, when her childhood friends start asking kids to take their clothes off, or young girls take their clothes off, that's when you realise it's going in an entirely different direction.
Yeah, and even that could be contained in a sort of American Pie sort of boys will be boys kind of way. Although this film obviously sees it almost from the get-go as an insidious and toxic way of behaving. There's a sort of brilliant image where they have the swimming pool over the cesspit
where the boy died,
and it's just like all the we were referring to The Shining before we started recording, but you're building the house on the Indian ancestral graveyard. Have you seen any other good films at the festival?
No. I'll have to think about that. No, I need to think about that before I say any more, to be honest. No, I need to think about that.
Hey, man.
Hello.
I'm looking for you.
I'm here.
Excellent.
I thought you'd been there, so I thought you'd probably...
So now I'm going to talk to Ben Dalton, who writes for Screen, but he predominantly writes news pieces for Screen, and he asked me to make it clear that these opinions that he is stating in this interview are purely on a personal basis and are not representative of the opinions of his publication.
Okay, Ben Dalton.
Oh dear.
I'm collecting tape for my for podcast.
Okay.
So what's the name of the film again, Ben?
The Czech title is Bod Obovny. In English, it's Restore Point.
Okay. And so what were you just saying before I turned on the recorder?
It's a very professionally done film. Perhaps slightly more than you might expect for a debut feature for a lot of the key collaborators. First feature for the director, producer, cinematographer, first lead role for the lead actress. And it is already set for release in Czech cinemas, but feels like it could manage to get some international play as well. It's very influenced by directors who've worked in Hollywood on such films, the name likes of Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve. It's got that kind of feel to it. Obviously, it's a lower budget, but very technically adept and engaging.
What's the high concept? Because I think that's the particular sort of selling point of the film.
Sure. So it's set in 2041, so a kind of near future. At a time when social unrest and violence has really peaked and has reached, a horrible point, and citizens can sign up to a technology that allows, if they are murdered, allows them to be restored, almost like in a video game, to a point, I think it's within 48 hours of their death. But in the film, this technology is at risk of being taken over by private corporations who may not have it in the best interest of the people. And that's the concept through which this police detective has to investigate a couple who have been murdered beyond that realm, so it seems that they're not going to be able to be restored.
It has a sort of Rick and Morty feel to it. Does it manage to escape that? Or Black Mirror, maybe?
Yes, it's I wouldn't say sort of po-faced, but in the way of a Christopher Nolan, it's not comic. There's, it's not played for laughs. It is serious, and it sort of, but it manages that tone well. It treads that line of a serious sci-fi, it's kind of well played. I guess you'd see the sort of budget difference from Hollywood things in that there aren't grand set pieces particularly. It all looks very, very good. It's great cinematography and I think some, adept VFX, but there's not grand explosions, big car chases or anything like that. So that's probably where the budget difference is coming in. But it's very engaging. It's a good watch. It's a touch over 2 hours, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. But it's a good watch.
Brilliant. And you're a veteran of Karlovy Vary, so while I've got you talking into my phone, what do you think of this edition? And what do you think of this festival generally?
I think it's a wonderful festival for the Central European region, and it's a great event for the Czech Republic as a country. They get dignitaries from all across their society to come here. I think it's increasing in importance from my 4 years here for the film industry. I think there's a lot of talk about, all films would love to go to Cannes, would love to go to Venice, would love to go to Toronto, but that's just numerically not possible. I think Karlovy Vary is a great place, particularly for debut feature filmmakers, second-time filmmakers, to launch a film, because you've got a very cine-literate and excited, passionate audience. Getting that interest and that boost on a film can be as good as you can get lost on the Croisette with the number of films, and that's less likely here. You're a bigger fish in a slightly smaller pond, and that really allows some talent to shine through. So this year, for example, Nakash Khalid's UK debut in camera is getting some really good reports, and it feels like this can be a good launch pad for a film of that size and that scale to go on to other festivals and go on to sort of wider distribution.
Yeah, which would otherwise sort of be hidden away in a sidebar and might not break out. Yeah. And last question, have you drank any of the water from the fountains? There are 14 fountains in town?
It's a big selling point is their local water for various uses. It's great in the spas. For drinking, I would say not so much.
It's sort of rotten eggy, isn't it?
It has a particular taste that, a sip to try it is fine. You wouldn't want a pint. But in the spas, when you're soaking in one of the baths, it's lovely. So clearly, has its uses.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Ben.
No trouble.
There you go.
Oh, that's great.
Great pleasure to talk to the artistic director of the film festival, Karol Ock.
So it was
I'm kicking myself. I missed Master and Commander because
it was 35 mil.
Oh, god damn it!
Oh, now you made me feel worse.
That's one of my favourite films. My top 10 sight and sound favourite films.
Yeah?
That's in
wow. No, I insisted this one. I picked on purpose, not just because it's the anniversary, but also I think it's underseen and it should be praised more because I think it's a masterpiece, and I rewatched it after 20 years now, and I saw different things in it, which is so. I mean, it's such a romantic film.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no woman, and it's a romance. I don't say you necessarily need a woman to have a romance, but it feels like it doesn't matter, like what gender it is. It's just a strongly romantic film.
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely a beautiful film about friendship.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, this being my first time, I've heard a lot about the festival from other people. What's sort of the history of the festival? What's the sort of, what's the origin story?
Karlovy International Film Festival is an old young festival, I would say, because we were born 1946.
Right.
Same year as Cannes in Locarno. Obviously, as of 1948, when the communists took power in Czechoslovakia, you could not really talk about the freedom of speech and the choices, the programming choices. But it did have some exclusive discoveries, especially in the so-called Third World. There was a strong presence of African cinema, and we discovered, our predecessor discovered some African filmmakers who then later went on for big careers like in Cannes, etc. But in the early 90s, when the communism fell down, there was a necessity to, be reborn, to find a new shape, new identity, and a famous Czech actor Jiří Bartoška has become the face, not just the face of the festival, but its president and the owner of the company organizing it. He's still president of the festival, and next to him it was Mrs. Zauralova, who was a famous film critic who was about to retire, but he called her to become the artist director, and she learned everything from scratch. How to invite films, how to create what we try to continue now, and she picked me as her successor in 2010. Unfortunately, she passed away last year, but she's here with us. And then, as I said, whatever they achieved in the 90s, and I'm talking hundreds of backpackers sleeping everywhere, it was like a Woodstock kind of thing. So we took it further in terms of the foreign, reputation in the world, and maybe more daring choices in the program, a more complex program, the industry section, but that's the heritage we work with. There's a really interesting element to this year's festival, which kind of answers your question as well. In 1948, there was a young Slovak guy, Eduard Grečner. He was 17, he came to the festival, which was the third year, and he watched a Mexican film, Puerto Escondido, and he decided he was going to be a filmmaker. He made it quite big in the 60s, he did some significant films. Then he strongly opposed the invasion of the Soviet troops in Czechoslovakia, and he was cancelled basically. He could no longer work. Later on in the 90s, he tried to resume the career, etc. He's still alive, he's 91 years old, and there's a documentary about him, on him, that we're premiering, and he's coming back. So we have a comeback after 75 years to the festival.
Right, like
which kind of
the beginning of the
yeah. So there's nothing that stops us in connecting or trying to connect present and past, which is what we try to do in guest department, but also in the programming.
And it's an amazing setting as well. The town itself.
The location is a key. We often discuss this with our friends and colleagues from other festivals, how incredibly hard it is to organize a festival in a big city where most of the people live and work, because they come careless here. They leave the kids with the grandparents, they lock the apartment, and they go to a summer camp, and we can invade their space with heavy, hardcore art house cinema, and they're ready. They're open. They don't have to think about the morning after, etc. And this is very beautiful, and it creates the atmosphere. So Genius Loci of this crazy cake type of thing, and the valley, it helps a lot.
And the audiences have been incredibly impressive. I've been to lots and lots of film festivals, but this is probably one of the first where almost every screening is full or very nearly full.
It is, and historically, the dates that were picked were always the beginning of the summer holidays. So it is kind of in the notion or in the mental space of every youngster who's interested in a film to go to Karlovy and to start the summer with it, right? So you end the school and you come here, and my oldest son, he's 15 now, and he's watched 5-6 movies because his vacations are starting now. Obviously, people take vacations, and I've been working here for 23 years, and I've seen the audience also changing, because at the beginning they were rather modest in terms of the questions to the directors, and now they're really outspoken and challenging the filmmakers with questions, which has got to do with the changes in society and the transformation of a post-communist country into something different. The audience is our most valuable asset.
I was at a Q&A for a documentary on Richard Harris, and one of the audience members asked a very astute question of, but as you say, sort of not in any way sort of passive or adoring. It was like, I'm not sure if you really got this. And it was great for the filmmakers, I think, to have that response immediately.
It seems they enjoy.
Yeah. What was your? You have some great guests here in this edition. I know you've had in the past. What has been a particular I know you don't want to be diplomatic, but what has been a particularly exciting get over the years?
Well, I'd like to mention Benicio del Toro as an actor who not only I've desired to bring to Karlovy, or I've desired that we bring him here, but also just this, there's charisma around, which surrounds the actors who are the soul of movies, and that charisma you want to bring here, and Benicio is one of the most charismatic actors. And what surprised us and what made me mention his name as first was that when he came here, we realized he was a great connoisseur of the Czechoslovak cinema. Not only he knew, Forman, Chytilová, Menzel, all the big films, but he knew films that I don't think even many Czech know, and he knew some particular trivia about it. I mean, he brought 2 pages of titles that he wanted to get the Blu-rays off and bring back, and he bought some posters. I mean, a true cinephile and a very kind person. Jeffrey Rush was with him last year, very sweet person. Ewan McGregor this year, even though he came only for 24 hours, incredibly sweet and funny guy. Alicia Vikander came accompanied by Michael Fassbender, who was not announced. He was just +1. Which is...
Did somebody stop him at the door and she had to say, "Oh no, he's with me"?
He's with me. He's the babysitter.
Yeah.
Because they have the child with them as well. No, it's somehow it might be difficult to get certain people because we do not pay any fees. We want them to come and promote the movies, so, like Alicia did with Firebrand. But once they get here, they become fans of the festival, which kind of manifests in the trailers, the little films we screen before the movies, because we asked the awardees to star in them after the festival, when they wouldn't really have to do anything, right, for us, because they're done with Karlovy. Yet 6 months later, 1 year later, with Johnny Depp, 2 years later, we find time in their schedule, we fly over there, and there's a crew and filmmaker, and in one half day we shoot the trailer, which then becomes an element of the festival which no other festival has. We shared the world premiere of the trailer of Johnny Depp through his social media, and we have like 3,600,000 views in 2 days. It's mad. And this all thanks to the kindness of our guests, to go back to your question.
Sure. And I mean, bringing up Johnny Depp, I've just come back from Taormina, and I was with Amber Heard in Taormina.
Oh, wow.
I know, so
really?
I'm doing the set.
That?
Yeah. I mean, what was there must have been some conversation in terms of, he's obviously coming with some baggage.
The baggage is something that we try to not to contribute to, because the baggage, there's all kinds of baggages, right? There's baggage of Harvey Weinstein type of people, convicted. And there is something which we could not be happier that it's changing, and that this Pandora's box has opened up, and the environment is being cleaned up, if I say it a little radically, from all this really disgusting stuff.
Yeah.
Then there is other baggage, which is what people write about someone who is going through a trial and has to kind of stand a lot of bad writings. But if we want to honor the presumption of innocence, we must never, make conclusions. And that baggage becomes slightly irrelevant, especially when the judgment is innocent. So that's something that I think we need to talk about nuances always, because it's easy to frame someone, to put a stain on someone, and it's difficult to clean the stain afterwards. And can I say, Johnny Depp starred in the opening movie of Cannes Film Festival this year, and by the way, a great performance. And so that type of baggage we consider to dismiss.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I have to. Here's two girls from Romania. So last question.
Okay. Okay, so because this is a Writers on Film podcast, and I noticed you have the Quentin Tarantino book on your shelf there.
Yeah, that's a brand new Czech translation.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you if you have a sort of favourite film book, a book that sort of has given you insights into cinema or fueled your passion from long ago, or something you go back to, or even something you've just discovered.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
I mean, this book is incredible. Cinema speculation, that's something that is a dream come true for any cinephile, to read a book written by someone whose film you admire and respect, but who is also a cinephile, who knows how to write about films, who knows how to challenge certain notions about the films, and he's not afraid, because he has a certain reputation, to kind of maybe undermine certain stereotypes. And it's exciting. I loved throughout the years many books that I read because of the retrospectives. We did mostly the autobiographies. I enjoyed very much. Sam Fuller book, Michael Powell's book, the Kevin McDonald's book on his grandfather, Emeric Pressburger. I mean, all these beautiful books, John Huston, Elio Petri. I mean, always in the autumn we decide what the retrospective will be, and then I start watching the films and reading the books, and it's like being back in school without the stress of the exam. It's just enjoying to be surrounded by this beauty and this richness of the film history, and well, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, well, you'll love my podcast. You should listen to it, Writers on Film.
Okay.
We go through all the books and interview the authors, and
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure that we could have another conversation about the books when I would start remembering.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Real pleasure.
Thank you. Pleasure from was mine.
Ben Nicholson is a writer with The Verdict, as his work has appeared in many magazines, including Sight and Sound and CineView. And he's talking about a new film by a British director, a debut feature film called In Camera. So this is our conversation.
Who are you writing for, by the way, Ben?
Film Verdict.
Oh, of course, yes, you mentioned that the other day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to do a CineView roundup.
Right.
Which is the bit that I like doing, because it means I can just go and see what I want and then write a little thing about it. The Film Verdict's the bit where I'm constantly writing, going and seeing, I've got
deadlines,
6-7 reviews to do throughout the festival.
Oh wow, great stuff.
So it's great, but it's such a different experience for a festival to what I was doing 2 years ago. When I came to Vari in 2020, well, before the pandemic, I guess now, like I would have come and done my CineView piece. So I'd have come, spent 5 days watching whatever I wanted, maybe pitch something to Sight and Sound if I saw something that was UK and thought it was, but otherwise I get on the plane and I write up my favourite 7 films in 100 words each for CineView, and I send it off, and Vari love it and it's great. So it was working perfectly well, and then
you had to go and ruin it.
And then I had to go and ruin it by starting to work for a trade, and it's a very different. I spend more time in my hotel room than I used to.
That's a weird thing. Yeah, me too. I'm doing a lot of writing in hotel rooms.
I just kind of, and I get like sent links to stuff if we can't see things. And I'm like, at Rotterdam, there was one day where I was like, I don't think I'm going to see anything in the cinema today.
Yeah.
And I've come to Rotterdam to the film festival, and I'm doing something that I effectively could be doing in my bedroom. Like I could be in the study at home and not be here to do this. And like,
yeah.
But you know, it's the nature of it. But it's a very different festival vibe to
I find that sort of writing for the trades, I really enjoy when it's a festival that isn't particularly for instance, I don't think I'd like to write for a trade for Cannes. Because I really want to go and see the movies. I don't want to be deadlining and
pick the one movie and then that's your day. You know, like which potentially it's not quite that bad, but it can be. Like you know, I can be like, right, well, I've seen the thing. Now, although there are 3 more things on, I really need to go back to the hotel and write that thing up so that you know. Yeah. And we're lucky that we're not. It's not quite so dogmatic as that. In that we've got a quota of reviews and the 3 of us here, and it's write about things that are interesting or that you like. It's not cover this even if you hate it. You know, and you've got to go back to the hotel and write 700 words about something you don't have anything to say about. You can always just drop it.
Yeah.
So it's good in that respect, but it's just a very different, vibe. You know, I've written, 10,000 words by the time I leave, and I'm like, that's not. That's
a chapter of a book.
That's not, and that's for 5 days. That's quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it just feels a bit like, it can end up by the end feel a bit like a slog.
Yeah, like actual work.
Like, today I've got 2 tickets this evening for the two Masamura films.
Right, which is a retrospective you've been following.
Yeah, but that's all I'm seeing today. Otherwise, I'm writing.
Right.
So,
I don't think I'm seeing a single film today. I've got interviews. The way of it, right? I've got interviews, I've got writing, and that's it the whole day.
Yeah.
What has been your highlight of the festival, and where?
My highlight so far, In Camera.
Okay, tell us about that. This is a British debut film?
Yes, Nakash Khalid's debut feature. As the short film writer for the Film Verdict, I'm always have to be very careful with those words because I'm like, it's not their debut. I write about short films. It's his debut feature.
Yeah.
And it is a story about story is probably misselling it. It's a film about an actor played by Naban Rizwan, and he is, I guess, searching for a role, is I think how the synopsis puts it. And it's really a very fragmented portrait of his life as an aspiring actor, not getting roles, going to auditions, doing workshops, trying to find something to kind of pin himself on. But it's just a really fascinating kind of piece about identity and about the lack thereof in someone who wants to spend their life reading other people's words, and this kind of, it's a very strange film with a very strange ambience, and he kind of finds roles to play in different aspects of his life that aren't necessarily his jobs. There are other kind of roles that he begins to take on in this kind of very strange situation. I don't want to try to explain the narrative because there really isn't one.
Right.
But it's just incredible. It's just genuinely the Proxima competition at Karlovy was started last year and replaced their East of West, and it was intended to be bold, new visions with experimental edges. And last year I felt that the Proxima competition was a little bit all over the place.
Right.
There were a couple of films that sort of fit that brief. There are other films where I was just like, there's not really anything experimental in this film. It's got a weird vibe, but it's not really anything particularly formally interesting about it. And I saw this and was like, oh, this is what they were talking about.
I
hope that this is what the rest of the program is, because this is what they were talking about when they said they used all of those buzzy words last year. They were talking about something like in camera, and it's great because it's the director and all three of the lead actors have all been like screen stars of tomorrow. So it's a very kind of it's an interesting piece that's full of loads of buzzy names. Amir Al-Masri's in it in a smaller role, who everyone is in love with after Limbo and stuff. So, and he's just fantastic in a kind of supporting role in this. So it's I'm going to be interested to see how it has a life beyond Vari, because it's full of buzzy names, particularly for the UK, but it's quite a difficult film. It's quite a nebulous film that I feel like if it didn't have buzzy names in it, it wouldn't really get much coverage by people, in the press I mean. So it'd be interesting to see how the critics and things respond to it when it starts moving around places, or whether it gets much response from here. Like I know the Guy at Variety's written a positive review of it, so there's been two. Guy Lodge at Variety, sorry.
A guy.
Not a guy, not some guy, some guy at Variety, I suppose.
Yeah.
Guy Lodge at Variety has written a positive review of it, so I think, this currently, the reviews that have come in are all good.
Helena Lazic as well.
Oh, she's written about it. I didn't. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's IndieWire or something.
Yeah, she's here for IndieWire, I think, isn't she? Yeah. So probably. So yeah. So it's good that it started like that, and it will be interesting to see. Yeah, if it kind of captures people in the way that I would hope it would.
Yeah, I'm really interested in it, in looking forward to some new sort of British filmmakers. Tom Hardiman's Medusa Deluxe has just come out in the UK, and I saw that last year at Locarno.
Yeah.
And there we saw the wonderful How to Have Sex at Cannes. Director's name escapes me. You've got it because you're good at names.
No, I've not got it.
Oh, God damn it.
No, sorry.
This is where during the edit I will put myself very confidently saying the name of the director.
Sure.
Note to editor John, do that.
Yeah.
So it's really good to have these new voices coming up. My one criticism of In Camera, and I think it goes to what you said about the narrative, is that it was interesting that you mentioned about being the short features, being responsible for short films in The Verdict, is that it felt very much like 3 short films that had been put together. That it had that sort of. I thought there was several stories in here which could have each been a short film.
Sure.
But I'm not sure that's necessarily a negative criticism, because, as you say, the nebulous nature of the film kind of allows for that to happen.
Yeah, I think I think I've seen a couple. I think maybe Guy Lodge in his review mentioned about the kind of, there's a strange kind of sort of asides with one of the side characters, Rory, who played by Rory Fleckburn, Beau, his flatmate, who has these kind of very surreal encounters, or they're not even really encounters. He just has these very surreal scenes on his own where he has a problem with a vending machine, and then he's driving through the country and he sees this vending machine, and then he has several kind of weird dreams and things. And I think Guy mentioned kind of that feeling like it's a separate thing from a separate film. It's interesting because I have some theories about In Camera.
Me too, yeah.
And so I'm not sure I do feel like that any of those things aren't separate. I think they all feed into the same story that I have, that I took away from In Camera.
Right.
I think, and the idea that, Nakash I think when he pitched it, he talked about it as like being like a concept album. And it was kind of about like different tracks that you listen to in a whole, but they have their own kind of vibe, and they come together.
Dark Side of the Moon.
I guess so. And I think what I find quite interesting is the fragmentary nature of the narrative. While the directors talked about it as being like the fragmentary nature of real life, like the messiness of life, I think it's also interesting that there's a character in there who has a very fragmented idea of identity. And so the identity of that main character is also very fragmentary. And so these different stories that we see, or even they're almost different like modes. There's like the satire of his auditions. It's a very, very different vibe to the work he does as an actor in these like much more in-depth workshops, which are very serious drama, and then he's a very vacant character, a very impassive character a lot of the time, although I think that the performance is good enough that he never seems impassive, although he's very quiet and withdrawn. So I don't know, I kind of feel like they all feed into things that maybe I think about the film that aren't necessarily there on the page and aren't necessarily what the filmmaker intended, but they're kind of ideas that I've taken away from it.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I think that the sort of glue-ons of narrative could have just been a little bit more explicit to make that to communicate that more to the audience. Yeah. But then again, that means making it into a different film, and I'm not sure that's our job as critics to sort of suggest that.
Exactly. And I mean, I spoke to Nakash about that when I asked him, did he feel pressure from the outside or from himself to make the film less difficult?
Yeah.
And he basically said, I treated this film as if I was never going to make a film again. So I made the film I wanted to make, and he was like, I didn't not take on board criticism or not take on board other people's ideas, but I was very, very sure that I knew the film I wanted to make. I'm not interested in normal narrative films, and what if I never get to do this again? This might be my one chance to do this. I don't want to make something that I'm going to look back on and not be proud of. Which is an interesting thing, because I agree. It's interesting when critics. And we do this with everything, and I'm guilty of doing it as well. But we review the film we wish something was. When I went and saw Man of Steel, I wrote a 1,500-word review of the Superman film I wish I'd seen, not the, to my mind, awful film that I did see. But I was aware when I finished it. This isn't a review of that film. This is me saying you got it wrong. You got the whole basis of this wrong. And here's why this doesn't marry up to my idea of this character you created. And actually, although fans can be really vehement in doing that with things that have existing fan bases, such as superhero films, I think we do it as critics anyway. We say but this film about relationships isn't what I think relationships are, and thus I think this film's got it wrong. And that's an interesting thing to navigate, obviously, as a critic. So I think people have to, I certainly sometimes read reviews of people and think, are you angry at this film, or are you angry that this is not a film? That is not a film that you wanted this film to be. And by the same vein, if In Camera had started out really fragmentary and then become more conventionally narrative, I probably would have liked it less because I wanted it to be more experimental. I was enjoying the experimental, and I write about the more avant-garde films, and so I would have maybe had a very different reaction to someone who may have viewed it more positively, because they'd have said, and it coalesces all of these things together at the end into a satisfying conclusion, and I would have been like, and it cops out at the end by bringing it all together into a satisfying conclusion. We talked about another film, Red Rooms, the other day, where we talked about the ending and whether or not that ending, what that ending means, and people will have very different reactions to that, and it will make the film better or worse as a result in their minds, which is that's the fun thing about reading other critics always, and the fun thing about talking about films. But it's a dangerous game.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Red Rooms is I remember now, it's actually the film that we were going to talk about initially, because that's the one but that's great. I'll just briefly give a sort of synopsis for the audience. Red Rooms is a Canadian thriller. And it's about a woman who is a sort of high-end model, and she also seems to make a living with some sort of trading and some professional poker, and she's obsessed with a trial of a serial killer who is connected to the internet because he was also running a series of red rooms in which he would broadcast videos of his tortures and murders of young women. It is a really stylistic thriller. It reminded me a little bit of Michael Mann, but it's even more overtly theatrical and stylistic than that. And yet, it just it really does something with a genre where I thought I'd kind of seen everything, and I was a little bit going in. I was a little bit cautious. I wasn't particularly looking forward to seeing it, and it was just riveting from beginning to end. What was your take of it?
Yeah, I mean, I find it really gripping, and it has a very distinct mood, which is kind of withdrawn and icy and calculating, and I think is intended to reflect to some degree its main character, but at the same time it's never kind of cold in the sense that we feel disconnected. You're absolutely invested in what's happening, maybe just not necessarily invested in the character herself, but you're invested in the strangeness of this situation, particularly this idea of her and this other young woman that she meets who are effectively fangirls of this person who's on trial, and yeah, it's a really compulsive film that is it's a bit like watching a car crash, not in the sense that you can't take your eyes away from something awful, but just that you're aware of how repulsive, effectively, this character, what's implied about these characters is, and yet they're all very hard to look at. They're magnetic, which is a fascinating thing to do with a film, and it's why I think potentially a lot of people will find it troubling for that reason. But I think that's intended, and that I think that's you kind of have a knot in your stomach through a lot of it, because you just can't quite believe what you're seeing and that someone can behave in the way they are. There's a scene where the central character hacks into someone's emails, the mother of one of the victims, so quickly and knowledgeably that I really felt my stomach fall out at that moment, because it was such a horrific. She basically used "Have I been pawned?" website to see if someone's passwords had been leaked, and then used the dark web to find the data leak that had the person's passwords in, and then goes into the email, and in the email finds an email with the reset code for the alarm on the person's house. And she does all this in 60 seconds, and you're watching the screens as she's doing it, and it was the whole you're kind of glimpsing behind the curtain here of someone that's very difficult to empathise with, and for most audience members is the furthest thing from what they are, and yet it's gripping, and you can't quite look, because you kind of want to know what's driving her, what's next. And then the ending means that none of those questions are ever really answered, because the ending is so ambiguous that it, or makes ambiguous everything you've seen before it.
And you've got this also thing that she's a model by profession, so she's this magnetically beautiful woman as well. So the halo effect means that we are likely to ascribe positive attributes to someone who's beautiful.
Sure.
But also there's that slightly very misogynistic thing of whenever a man murders and tortures women, we look for the nearest woman to blame, and to put our guilt on it, in terms of, Peter Sutcliffe's wife, for instance. Got huge amounts of blame of how could she not have known? Well, she wasn't the one going out and killing women with hammers, but she seemed to get a disproportionate amount of blame, as if she was almost equal to Peter in terms of what he'd been doing. Fascinating, thoughtful film. I'm looking forward to speaking to the director later and getting into his head about it. Well, thanks, Ben. It's been great talking to you.
No worries. Thanks a lot.
That's super duper lemon scooper. So you don't like Pink Floyd? I noticed by your wincing.
No, it's more just that
you're a yes man.
It's the go-to concept album. I didn't want to say yes, but I mean, there's a lot more of them. No, but I was like, is it? I didn't want to say it is.
But I thought Darker Side of the Moon, because of the lunacy aspect.
Yeah, that's
wasn't
fair,
ran.
No, but it's that's what it wasn't. It wasn't Pink Floyd thing. It was a. Is it Dark Side of the Moon? And is that just an easy concept? And I was like, I don't have time to have that conversation
Yeah.
now on this. So that's why I paused. That was my pause. Was to
Right.
go, was I wanted to go like, I don't know. Is it a Dark Side of the Moon? Do I need to
Marillion. What's
is there a different album, a different concept album that I think it is more like. But yeah, I'm not entirely convinced.
Shorter days and chillier nights can make it tough to keep up your fall workout routine. Thankfully, there's Alo Moves, the app that brings health and wellness to the comfort of your home. Alo Moves offers yoga, Pilates, strength workouts, and other fitness classes, plus wellness offerings like meditations, sound baths, and more. Whether you have 5 minutes or an hour, Alo Moves has a class or flow that saves you from a frigid trip to the gym. Get a 30-day free trial and 20% off an annual membership with code ACAST at alomoves.com.
Hey, it's Mark Marin from WTF here to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. And I'm sure the reason you're listening to this podcast right now is because you chose it. Well, choose Progressive's Name Your Price tool, and you could find insurance options that fit your budget, so you can pick the best one for your situation. Who doesn't like choice? Try it at Progressive.com. And now, some legal info. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.